Welcome back. In this episode of Just What You Need to Know, we're going to cover writing your post. As you can see, we're starting from the dashboard. If you're unfamiliar with logging in, please see the previous video on how to log in and out of your WordPress site. Click on Posts on the top left side to see a list of your existing posts. I'll go over what each of the columns are later, but for now we'll just ignore them. To start your post, click on the Add New text that appears either beside the posts at the top of the list of posts here, or here below all posts, or here under the plus sign New and select Post. Once you click on any of these buttons, you'll be presented with a blank post that looks like this. Now, before we start writing our post, I want to take a second to explain how you should be writing, or at least formatting your post. Writing for the web, assuming you want your content to be found, is different than writing for print. Search engines expect to find certain content in a certain order. For example, headings should always appear in ascending order. You can always go back down a heading or two, but you should never jump from a heading 1 to a heading 5 and then a heading 3. It makes no sense to both humans and computers. The heading numbers or tags are not used to format your headings, but rather to indicate to the search engines their level of importance. If you want your heading 2, for example, to look different than it currently does, then these are custom changes that need to be executed by a designer or programmer. So since headings are in ascending order, it's safe to assume, for search purposes, that the text within the headings are in ascending order of importance. If you're writing a post for model soldiers and someone searches model soldier and Google finds two results, one within the text in a heading 1 tag and one as a heading 2 tag, it will put the heading 1 result as more relevant to the searcher, well, depending on the rest of the content of the page. In other words, it will appear higher up in the search results of Google. In WordPress by design, the title of the post is a heading 1, or in search engine terms, the most important location for the content of the page. Therefore, instead of writing a heading that says Model Soldiers, you might consider War of 1812, Royal Newfoundland Regiment, Model Soldiers. That doesn't leave much room for ambiguity in the thousands of posts out there on model soldiers. On my website, I have an analogy to an iceberg. That on a website you see only about 1/10 of the content. The rest is hidden, and this is especially true with proper formatting. If you want to prove this to yourself, in Internet Explorer, surf to a page and select Developer Tools. And take a look at, just click on Developer Tools. Incidentally, all browsers can do this, but they all call it something different. So to make things easy, I'll demonstrate it in just one, Internet Explorer. This opens the developer panel where we debug sites, and it also allows you to see the content below the surface and how important the understanding is. Click on the little down arrows here to expand out the content that is being created automatically for you. Header, H1, name of the post. A little bit further, we come down to entry content, and we have our paragraph tags. Anything that's strong, this is emphasized, italics. Look at how much stuff is created behind the scenes based on your input. Now you start to have an idea of the amount of coding that's going into your site with little or no input from you aside from picking a style. So with that background behind you, you begin by filling in the post title. So we'll go back to our post and fill in the post title. Now you move on to the content. You can either write the content in the window or copy and paste it from a word processor such as Word or OpenOffice. If you're pasting pre-formatted text in from Word or OpenOffice, you want to make sure that the paste icon does not have a little line around it like this. Here's the paste icon. Click on it. We get a pop-up menu that says, warning, warning, we're going into plain text mode. Click on OK. And now you can see there's a little line around it. That means that anytime you paste text in at this point, it's going to remove any formatting that you've done in a word processor. Sometimes this can be very beneficial. In fact, most times it will be more beneficial than pasting in from a word processor. The reason is that When you take text in from a word processor, it tries to take everything in from the word processor, the fonts, line changes, justification, but it doesn't do this on a paragraph by paragraph basis like it should. It does it based on a word by word or a line by line basis, which means that every single line has a font call instead of just the beginning of the text. At any rate, I'm going to paste in, I'm going to remove this, I'm going to paste in my text, and you can see it's retained the heading call. If I click on it, it defaults to a heading 1 text. It's got it underlined. I may not want it underlined. In fact, I may not want this welcome to the website at all. So I'll highlight it and delete it. It still thinks it's in heading 1, just like any word processor. So I'll highlight this text and change it back to paragraph. And basically just go through the text that you've pasted in and make sure that it is what you need it to be. It's going to require a little bit of cleanup. If there's any kind of tables in there, they're handled quite differently in websites. When you are more or less happy with how this is looking, you should save draft. Save draft is up here in the upper right hand corner. Clicking on it will save any changes you've got to your server. I want to remind you that when you're working on a WordPress site, when you're working on any site for that matter on the web, that although you're working locally on your computer, the files are stored remotely on the server. That means that they could be saved anywhere in the world. WordPress is pretty good about saving periodically, but it's a good habit to get into. If I make a couple of changes, let's suppose we added a word, writing for publication on the web, and I haven't saved anything, and I try and navigate away. Let's say go back and look at all our posts. I get a pop-up message saying, oh, wait a minute, these changes you made will be lost if you navigate away from this page. So you have the opportunity of saying, ignore it and leave the page, or stay on this page, in which case you would usually go back and say save draft. Then when you try and navigate away from this page, you have no problem and you're in your list. To go back into your draft, simply click on it and continue working on it. So at this point, we're pretty much ready to publish your post, but there are a few things that need to add behind the scenes. We're going to go back to your listing of all your posts and hover your cursor over the title until you see the 4 options at the bottom. Here we're going to click on Quick Edit, and it's going to pop you up at this window. Look for the category selector and choose the category that you want the post to appear in, aside from your home page, that is. In other words, the menu item where you want this post to display. In this particular blog, we have only one other location aside from the home page, which is actually blog. So when you uncheck uncategorize and check blog. If you want people to be able to comment on your post, make sure that you have checked allow comments. Again, it's a checkbox, yes or no. And pings. Pings is a method of notifying you if someone posts or references your post on their site. It was intended as a method to qualify notes. Both sites have to allow pings for this to work, and in reality, I've never received a ping, and I have a lot of sites out there. Tags are an optional search criteria. Tags actually is a bad word because they're confused with heading tags or paragraph tags. I think of them more like keywords. For example, your post may be on model soldiers, so your category might be model soldiers. However, this particular post might emphasize World War I British officers. In this case, we could add World War I and British and officers as tags. You add them simply by clicking in the tags field and separating them with a comma. So World War I. The advantage in doing it this way is later if you do an article on French World War I officers, you only have to add the French tag to your list as opposed to another tag World War I French officer. You can add as many tags as you like, however try to be consistent in your logic throughout your site. In other words, do not create a tag for each new post. Instead, try to think of tags that are appropriate for the entire site and might help a search engine narrow down a search for the searcher. Personally, I like to make them single words and use multiple tags. That way, someone searching for a World War I or British will hit your site, as well as somebody searching for World War I British. Once you're satisfied with all these changes, don't forget to hit Update to apply your changes. If you want to see what your page is looking like, click on the preview text located here, and you'll see what it looks like on the web. To go back to your post within your dashboard, you have two choices. You can either hit the back button, or you can hover over this and click on Dashboard. Back to Posts, and back into your first post. At this point, you're ready to publish. To publish, you basically click on the Publish button. It's as simple as that. It publishes it immediately to your website for all to see. So that was a long topic, but one that will serve you well in writing for the web. We'll get into more details later, but this will give you a good solid foundation from a place to start. So until next time, see you later.